we are going to get started and jump in today. And I'm going to start by introducing my sisters who I'm so excited are here with us. And sorry we got started a little late, but that's what happens when you're with sisters that you love, and then you lose track of time and have cousins over and get kids to bed. But we're excited to be here now. This is my sister Sarah.
Hello.
And this is my sister Jessica.
Hi.
Jessica is the oldest of our family. There's 6 kids. She's the oldest, and we love you, Sarah. She's the oldest, then I'm the second oldest, then we have 3 brothers, and then the youngest sister. So she's 13 years younger than her, and somehow we all ended up having a baby in the same year, baby boy.
I would have never thought. All of us.
I know, it's kind of fun. So maybe quick intro, like what you're doing right now, where you are in life. Yeah, interests. Just so you guys have a little background on who we are.
Yes. Oh, the hearts are making me feel good. Making us feel good. You're so amazing to be here. I want to send hearts back to you right now. Oh, okay. So I'm Jessica. I feel like even though I'm the oldest, any of you that know these two, I feel like in years and wisdom, they're so much older than I am, and it's amazing learning from them. Even though crazy to think, Sarah was 5 when I went to college, and this can be for both of us, but she came to my oldest daughter is almost 11, and then I have a son who's almost 9, son who is 6, a daughter who's 4, and then our cute little guy who's 7 months. And she came and helped at my daughter's 5th grade party today, and all the friends like, oh, that's your mom, and oh, that's your aunt, and they said, yeah, we're sisters, and she said, how far apart do you think they are? And oh, you're probably like a year apart or whatever. They were making us feel so good. But it's been so fun. Like she said, we all have a baby the same age, and to think now that we're all in the same stage of life in a lot of ways, it is just so fun to connect in this way and have conversations and learn from each other. And while we've each had different paths, it's fun to have that in common. I'm so grateful. So what else from me? Those are my kids. I have the best husband in the world. Besides that, he's really hot. And
okay, and she lives in Arizona, and that's who we're visiting for part of our Christmas this year. Younger sister Sarah.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Sarah. Like they said, I'm significantly younger than the 2 of them, but I'm so lucky to be the youngest sister for them. And really, I feel like I just get to learn from the best all the time. I'm going to school. My husband and I are both students. I think I have the best husband in the world, so no,
it's a husband competition apparently tonight.
No,
he is amazing.
He is amazing.
They all are. For us individually.
It's true.
It's great.
It's true. So true.
No, yeah, so we're going to school. We have our sweet little boy, and kind of not living life according to the plan we had for ourselves from the beginning, but living a beautiful life and learning a lot all the time.
So one of the reasons I wanted to bring them on is I feel like sometimes when I talk about, living on purpose, living your mission, finding what you're here for and doing that, because my journey has been law school and then some working and things like that I feel like sometimes people think I'm saying, if you don't work, then you have to do this, or that there's one way that because I found the way for me, that's the only way. And I hate that because that's the last thing I would ever want anybody to feel. I think what I'm saying is the exact opposite of that. And I love the fact, correct me if you think this is wrong, I feel like growing up more, she was more like, I maybe want more of a career and I want a job, and I feel like that's probably the most fulfilling thing for me. And I legitimately, anyone who's listened to the podcast I did a while back, legitimately wanted 13 kids. And so I kind of just laugh, because our lives ended up switching. I ended up going to law school, didn't find someone I really wanted to marry, then got married. Took us a while to have kids. In the meantime, she had a few kids, and so we just laugh how life turns out. And then Sarah, on the other hand, got married really young.
We were both older. We were both much older.
We were both a lot older, and they had a baby very quickly thereafter, which is just funny because I think any of us would have said, that's not what we expected for our lives. But every one of us feel like we're exactly in the right place for us. And even looking at each other, saying, I can see that just as clearly in her and in her as I can in my own life. So tonight we want to talk a little bit about that and how to support each other and how to know that you're enough and how to have that sisterhood in your life when everybody's different and everybody has a little different path. And we're going to talk a little bit about how social media plays into this. And as we talked about it, I think there's kind of this big negative movement where a lot of people are like, oh, it's the worst, whatever. But there's also a lot of positive things of social media, and we can see both ends of the spectrum. And so we're going to talk a little bit about both of them. So we're going to each share a couple things that have come to mind, and it's going to be just a discussion with all of these. You guys know I don't like to have these go on forever, though sometimes I like to talk forever. So I'm going to try to moderate good discussion and have kind of a back and forth. We're not going to be taking comments just because we had to sit kind of far back, so I frankly can't really read them very
Although
well.
I see some, and for all of you loving us, we love you, because there have been some really sweet comments. So
Thank you. I'll go back and read them too. So let's start out with, we're going to each give a way. The last thing we kind of ended up with on last week's chat was I had a bunch of people direct message in, okay, so you're talking about social media. I kind of see how social media, I'm struggling on social media. What do you do proactively to make sure what you're doing online is what you want to be doing online? So we'll each give an idea for that. And then we'll jump into a little bit about sisterhood and real connection with women. My first tip, and we've already talked about this, and so sorry if this is the one you guys wanted to talk about, is when I wake up, I try to always be in the scripture and be in God's word. I feel like the very first thing I do when I get up is a pretty good predictor of where I'm placing value. And when I go right to social media, the very first thing, I usually find that that's who I'm looking for approval, whether it's the stuff I'm doing online or how I look or how I think about my body or whatever. That first thing I do in my day is really helpful for me to say, I'm going to go to God first. You might remember a couple, for those of you who were on the chat 2 weeks ago, talking about that book, You Are Special. When she goes to the wood carver, she knows who she is, and then she spreads that to the other little Wemmick, and he knows who he is. And I try to remember that, and I feel like being in God's word is the best way. Also prayer, I think those two things help me stay grounded on what matters most when I do that first. So there's my tip.
It sets the tone for the whole day.
Yep.
It really does. And at the end of the day, when I realize I have done that or haven't done that, I can see it in my day that, okay, that's why today was really hard, because I didn't have that priority. And it really affects it. And I've experienced both sides. Enough
Absolutely.
times I'm sad to admit that I've experienced them both. So true.
Yep. Same. Okay, let's go, Sarah. Yeah. What's your tip?
So my tip, first of all, sometimes I feel bad kind of talking about it because I in no way am perfect at it. I feel like I struggle
At any of these things. We'll just throw that out here. These are the things we're aspiring to, and we know when we do them, they work.
Yes.
totally. And I feel like that is the basis of it, that's why I love these, because we're all coming together to not say that we're perfect at what we're saying, but to say we're here to build each other up and to work together to be our best selves, which is different for everybody. So it's something I've been trying lately. It's actually, funny enough, it's an app that you can put on your phone. It's called Moment. And
Is it the one that tells you to breathe deeply?
No, I also need that too. Sometimes get a little worked up. It's called Moment. I'm just going to check real quick to make sure that's what it's called. Yeah, Moment. So you go on Moment, and it tracks how much time you're on your phone having screen time every day. And
also how many times you pick up your phone.
And
Is
how
that
many
right?
times you
I
pick
love
up
that.
your phone, how many times you check on your phone,
Wow.
press the home button.
Maybe I'll just interrupt. Some of you may have seen on my stories last time, if you go check just your battery life, it will give you a breakdown of how much battery you're using on each thing. So you can real time right now go check under settings, battery, and it will give you a breakdown. I loved with the Moment app that it's how many times you pick it up, because I think that's also a good reality check.
Yeah.
I love that you said that.
And there's, you can upgrade your plan on this app to where it sends you reminders, or it actually locks certain apps in your phone so you can't get into them if you spend too much time a day. And every at 3:00 every day it'll send me your phone time yesterday was this amount of time. It was 50 minutes higher than the day before. And it just kind of helps you kind of stay in check. Like, are my priorities showing true to what I'm doing in my day-to-day actions? So that's something I really like.
Okay, tip number 2, Moment app. Love it. Awesome. Tip number 3 for intentional online social media use.
Kind of leading off of that, I feel like the first step is just to decide to do something, to be intentional about it, because you can get a week, a month, a year of your life completely taken just by not putting some thought into it. I was just having a conversation with a dear cousin who I've been reading a lot of books lately, and I don't go through them fast or by any means speed read them at all, but I just have been loving reading. And it was only once I decided I'm going to use the time that I just scroll mindlessly to pick up a book. I bring a book with me in my diaper bag, and when I'm at the doctor's office, I pick it out and I read a little bit. And I'm usually reading a few books at a time, because there may be one that's, really, really interesting. There may be one that's a little bit harder to get into. Or, there's different books. A novel, I really have a hard time putting that one down. But something that gives my brain something that's going to build it. It makes me feel smarter. I have more interesting things to talk about with people than when I catch myself just mindlessly scrolling. So I've been trying to put something else in the place of the things that I'm doing. There are things I love to do with social media, things that I love to do on my phone that I think are really beneficial and they build me. But as I started noticing here several months ago that I wasn't happy when I put my phone down. After I had just been scrolling through Instagram or looking at other people's lives, it wasn't building me. It wasn't making me any happier. So I thought, I'm going to look for books. I'm going to look for things that make me a better person and that to build some of my interests or things that I want to study up on more. And so I just started being cognizant about how much time I was spending on things, and then saying no to that, saying yes to this, and just you'd be amazed at how many little small chunks of time you have throughout your day.
Love it. And that's kind of, we talked about that last time, the slot machine comment.
Loved that.
So many times you just check in and you just put another coin, pull the slot machine, wanting something good back. And so those were our 3 tips to start out with, how to be intentional about your social media use. First off, check in with God before you check in with everybody else. Scripture, be in God's word as well as prayer. Tip number 2, Moment app. Track what you're doing. You can do this battery life. Moment app is awesome. Tip number 3, just start and be intentional and say, I'm going to think through this. And then also with a little replacement, maybe instead of just saying, I'm not going to do that, what are the things I want to be doing? And I love that idea of reading a book, because I think that's also something that's rewarding, but in a way that probably gives back more when it's if it's just mindless scrolling. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the things we love to do to truly connect as women. So this
we have
can
to shout out to our mom. We love you, Mom.
Oh, we love you, Mom. Carry 504.
And so cool. So many people that are saying, like, I've been working on it. This is something I've made a goal and am improving. I think you guys are awesome.
I love that.
totally
Choosing to interact intentionally instead of just scrolling. So good.
So cool.
Love that. And when we talked about before producing more than we consume,
Yep.
I think something that is good online when you are on there leaving comments and likes, that might seem something like silly, like, oh, but really you are doing interacting. You're not just like staring and like looking at what people are doing. Totally.
I like when you're genuinely caring and reaching out to people, they feel it. And when you kind of almost going with a purpose on social media of, how can I build somebody up? How can I learn from somebody or make them feel loved? I feel like it kind of takes on a whole new take, because social media is great. I keep in touch with so many people I wouldn't have the opportunity to otherwise. But when you have a different mindset, even that 30 minutes on Facebook or Instagram can be really meaningful, and it actually can benefit other people and yourself. So
love it. All right, so we're each going to talk about some little tips that we have for connecting in a real way with women. And I kind of talked about this on the post. There are a few traps and pitfalls, I think, that are just natural. There's things that guys struggle with, and there's things that girls struggle with. 2 things we're going to kind of hit are comparison and insecurities. And I think they probably are really like 2, I'm going to use handcuffs as a metaphor here, 2 ends of a handcuff. I think comparison really brings out your insecurities, and your insecurities makes you want to compare yourself to others. which always makes you feel worse if it's coming from a place of insecurity. So we're going to each going to be a conversation here, but also talk about the things that we've done. Just to set the stage, this isn't always easy for us. So we're not coming from a place of perfection. Like Sarah, I loved that you said that at the beginning. Like, we're not saying we're perfect at this, but I think we know some things that have worked, and we know times where it really hasn't worked. And we've had situations that we've been like, that's not what we want in our sisterhood. Growing up, she was just 2 years older than me. We didn't have as much of this growing up because she was young enough that there wasn't the comparison there. She was a dancer. She was an incredible dancer, is an incredible dancer. I thought I was good dancing, and now I watch tapes and I wasn't as good as I was in my mind.
Incredible goalkeeper, basketball player.
I did love sports, but I think there were times we each have a little bit of a different build. There were things that it was just really easy to think, oh, I wish I were more like her as she's grown up. I wish I were more like her, or things she would do in high school. Just that trap. We just talked about that pitfall, that joint pitfall of insecurities that become those handcuffs with comparison.
And I felt like it wasn't even that much maybe in high school, but I feel like once like college and married life, it amplified a ton as we particularly started doing things that we thought each other would be doing. I was studying for the LSAT. I thought I would probably go to law school. I could picture myself having a career. Kids didn't come to me naturally. They cried when I held them. They loved, like her major, my major, just different things that it just seemed she'll have all the kids, she'll be baking bread every day. And so as things weren't working out that way, it definitely caused a lot of those feelings. And I wanted to tell you, Jenna Bug 5, I will be addressing that in my comments, so hold on.
Okay.
But yes, I think it has gotten worse. Not worse, but harder.
It was harder.
Gotten older.
Which you would almost think that it would be easier when you're younger. Like, I remember thinking, oh, everyone when you're older, like, how could women have issues with other women? And then realizing, because you still have that goal to become kind and diligent and full of faith and all those attributes that you may want, they don't just happen because you age. They happen because you work on them. And so getting older is not going to be the solution. If you struggle with those kind of things, they don't just go away. So let's start in some tips. Does anyone have one they want to jump in with first? Should I jump in with one? Be a cheerleader for everyone else. I think something that I have really noticed, I don't speak up as often about things I love about people. I think there's a lot of time that there's unsaid compliments in my life, like, wow, that person's really beautiful, or wow, that was amazing that she just sang that song. I love her voice. Not even oh, I wish I were like that. Just that's really amazing. And I'm not very quick to say that to someone. I feel like having true sisterhood or expressing those things that you see in someone else that are good, that maybe sometimes make you feel a little bit insecure. When you express them in a positive way, it goes from feeling insecure and jealous and envious to truly I admire that gift, that talent, that person's ability to have worked on something so hard and refined that skill. So number one, I'm going to talk about, and maybe I'll keep a little list of these. Do you guys mind if I start writing these down? Because I'll put these back up on my Instagram. I'm going to do, thank you. So cheer people on. I think cheering people on is huge, and I think as women, we're really slow to do that too often. We're good at saying, oh, you're so beautiful, I love your thigh gap, I wish I had your skin.
And inside we're thinking, I wish I had that, I wish I had that, I wish I had that.
But to truly say, I love this about you, and here's why, that's what I love. Okay, so cheer each other on, number one.
So I have one. Growing up as the youngest child.
And favorite child. Is that?
No. But growing up, especially having these two as older sisters, was very intimidating. Like, first and foremost, there's been so many times in my life where I come kind of to a milestone in my life, and I feel like I could never do it as well as they did it. And it was really hard, because feeling like you're not enough because you're not somebody else, it can be really daunting, and it can inhibit you becoming who you're supposed to be. And when I served on a service mission for 1.5 years in Taiwan, which I just loved, changed my life, and I was having this same problem comparing myself to the other sisters. You're put with another woman that you've never met before, and you're expected to go and work.
And you live with 24/7, work with, speak in a foreign language with.
Never part except for when you're in the bathroom. So just having a lot of problems inside with comparing and feeling like, oh, I'll never be as good as her or speak the language as well as her. All these things. And as I was studying my scriptures one morning, really trying to turn to God to understand, I just had this overwhelming feeling of thinking of Christ and thinking of Christ looking at the incredible men and role models, you could say, before you take Adam, the first man on this earth, and setting such a stalwart example of trying to seek God, or Abraham, the father of nations, these men that we have heard of. And Christ, you could imagine if I were in his position thinking, wow, they've done a lot of incredible things. You know, what if I never do what they did? What if I never do as many incredible things like them? But Christ's purpose wasn't to come to the earth to part the Red Sea like Moses. Christ came on this earth to save mankind. And as soon as I kind of understood that just because my mission and my purpose is different than them, doesn't mean that we can't all work together to fulfill God's mission for all of his children on earth.
Doesn't mean it's any lesser.
Yeah, and I just think that's what's so cool when we connect with women and when we love other women, and instead of try to tear each other down because of other women's strengths and maybe weaknesses, when we instead turn to each other and build each other up, we all help each other fulfill God's purpose, which is so much more above our own. And our purposes can be anything, and it's whatever you feel moved to do. God will help you accomplish what you need to accomplish for him. And I just think it's amazing that it's different. Each of us have had very different lives, but when we work together and realize that our differences are what make us strong, it's a whole different jive in spirit. So
thank you. And I'm just going to label that one, don't compare, even though there was a ton under that. But even Jesus could have done that. And if someone that was perfect could have looked at his mortal ministry and thought something lesser, obviously we have plenty of opportunities and shouldn't take them. Love that. Yeah. Did you have one you want to go next?
Yes. So I was waiting because I knew one of them would lead exactly into what I've been feeling. And per a couple of the comments I've seen here, where my life has gone that I didn't quite expect, of having children and then watching a sister particularly succeed in areas that are very public, a lot of people seeing, a lot of people watching, a lot of people liking, a lot of people cheering on, and feeling like, is what I'm doing even mattering? I feel like I'm supposed to stay home with my children. I feel like I'm supposed to be here to help them in the ways they need, and I'm not supposed to be in the workforce like some of my really good friends who are also amazing mothers. But I felt God tell me that this is where I needed to be. And it's been probably 3 to 4 years ago, and I just shared this story with a group of women a month or so ago, and it just burned it even deeper in my heart. But I was really struggling and feeling like, why am I not supposed to be doing something important? Like, when is it that I'm supposed to, go back to school or get this degree or go get this job? When is that time gonna be? And feeling like, yeah, what I'm doing right now is important, I'm sure. And I really started pouring my heart out in prayer, feeling like, just help me know what I'm supposed to do. What's my purpose? And I remember really specifically, I was out on a run, and I was listening to something and just feeling I'm always so happy when I'm out on a run. It's quite freeing and happy for me. But I'm out there running, and again, my thoughts turn to, okay, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? And I had just, to preface this a bit more, the year before this, I had felt really strongly that I was supposed to homeschool my kids. My oldest was in 2nd grade, my second was in kindergarten, and the feeling came really strong. And it was like, you want me to do what? That's something I would have never considered, something I didn't know many people who had homeschooled. And okay, I'll start considering, and I started doing research, and longer story short, I started homeschooling my kids. So this is a year into it, and it had been amazing. It was hard as heck sometimes, but it had been a really, really amazing thing for our family. So about a year into that, I'm out on this run and saying, what is my purpose? What important thing am I supposed to be doing? And clear as day, God said to my heart, what you are doing right now is your purpose. And it was so clear and so strong, but it didn't stop with that. Then he said, and don't forget it. Don't forget it. And I remember turning onto my street. We live down at the end of the street. And I just kept repeating to myself, I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. And I say it every time I finish a run. Every time I get on my street, I remind myself, because all I have to do is jump on social media and see what even my own sister is doing in the world that thousands of people see, and Satan wants me to think what you're doing with 5 people in your home is nothing. They're dirty half the time. They're always crying for food. The house is a disaster. Like, what you're doing means nothing. But Heavenly Father told me to remember. And so I remind myself as often as I can, because I feel like that is one of the most powerful things we can have. And it goes right along with cheering each other on. It doesn't matter if your friend feels like she should be at work. It doesn't matter if your friend, you think maybe she is choosing not to have kids and maybe she's struggling with infertility. It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. If we're cheering each other on and we're reminding ourselves of our own purpose, then we'll have that confidence to cheer each other on. And we'll have that confidence to put our heart and soul into what we're doing. And so if any of you out there feel like you don't know what that purpose is, maybe you are home with your kids, but you don't feel that, ask. Maybe he won't tell you in your prayers tonight. Maybe he won't tell you first thing in the morning. It took a couple of years of me praying and searching and striving, like, what am I supposed to do? And I feel like him telling me to homeschool was something that helped me see and develop my purpose to an even greater extent. That now I can see those fruits in my home of trying to, my hardest to fulfill my purpose. And I'm so grateful for that. Because I feel like
You see why I brought them on tonight? Because they're the best of the best. You are.
No, but it's a constant reminder. It's, I mean, even as we've been together this week of like different things they'll do or say, and like, like you just start feeling like you're not enough and what you're doing isn't good enough. But keep reminding yourself, because what you're doing is the most important thing you can be doing right now if you feel like that is what God is telling you.
Thank you. So ask the question. I have that down as number 3. And we didn't share what we were going to do because I wanted each of us to bring different things up that we felt strongly. But I had that one on my list too. And actually in my undergrad, I studied human development. And there was a study that we read about that has stuck with me ever since, that the people that are the most satisfied in life are those that ask a question and find and resolve an issue in their life and then live true to that. So they did a study particularly on religions. I can't remember at what university it was done. And they studied people who stayed in the religion of their parents but never questioned it, or who questioned it and then stayed in the religion of their parents, or who questioned it and then went to changed religions. And the two that questioned, they were the most satisfied, and pretty equally. It didn't matter if it was the same, a little more if it was their parents because they had more family support, is what the researchers said. But I just thought it was interesting, and questioning is a great thing. Asking God questions is a great thing. Having a spirit of questioning is how we progress, I believe. And so I love that. Ask the question. And I had 2 people, maybe 3 people direct message me after the first one and say, so I'm at this crossroads and I'm struggling and I'm not knowing them. And I wrote back to every one of them, like, this probably sounds silly. I feel like I don't want to be condescending, but have you asked God? And every one of them wrote back, I have not. And that's not to say like we're wrong. I mean, like, boo for them. That's not at all what it's saying. Just saying that sometimes it's easy to talk to other people and to friends and say, I don't know, what do you think? I don't know. But have you asked God? And then be patient and wait, and maybe it's on a run, or maybe it's when you're doing something and then you feel fully engaged and you realize, or it's a conversation with another friend. But ask the question. It's hard. We ask.
And then when you get the answer, remind yourself.
Yes.
Remind yourself, because you have to. The world's too loud. It's too loud and will shut out whatever you believe.
I love that.
Wisdom begins in wonder, Socrates.
Ooh,
yes, thank you, Sam.
Love that. Okay, so I'm going to go another one. Another principle for how we can have true sisterhood is we are all on the same team. This was one of my favorite principles. So when you're on a team, I'm a basketball fan. I ended up playing basketball partially because of my poor dancing abilities, but I actually ended up really loving sports. Something I loved about it, like when you watch basketball, you hear about like some people love LeBron James, some people hate LeBron James, and the people who say they hate LeBron James in the past are typically like, he's too much for himself. He wants his name to be known. He wants to become this big like legacy, whatever. But on good teams, when the teammate scores or when you score, it doesn't really matter because your team gained a point, right? I think there's a devil, and I think he has a purpose right now of making us forget who the war is really about. Mm-hmm. I think he wants us to feel like, no, pretend like you're not fighting me, because if you fight me, women, you're really successful. So instead of fighting me, I'll just have you turn and look at each other, and you can pretend like the battle's against each other. So when she scores a point, you lose. And when that girl scores a point, your family's less. This kind of goes back to number one, but if we see ourselves as a team, anytime a woman I know has a success and she does something wonderful and champions the family or champions education or champions faith, the principles that hold the dearest to me, guess what? My team wins. Mm-hmm. And when she's talking about it on Instagram, or when she's holding a neighborhood thing with her friends in her neighborhood, or when she's at her church giving a talk and she talks and champions those causes, guess what? I win. And so it doesn't mean, this is not like a zero-sum game, right? Where one person wins, one person loses. And I think that's enough said. You guys are on my team. So you do something great, I win. I'm on your team. If I do something great, you win. And I really feel like if women could see that more, we would all be just, I'll take your kids and you go do that, and then you take my kids, and then let's all get our kids together and I'll teach them together and share best principles or whatever. So enough said, we're all on the same team. Yep. When you win, I win. Don't let Satan do this and face each other.
A little add-in to that is a dear friend, Jane, just shared this with me. With your children, when you're talking with your children, there's things that you don't feel good about, things you don't want them to do. You're guiding them, whether it's in social media or certain friends. You can say that to them, that I'm on your team. It's you and I against the devil. It's you and I against these negative forces. It's not me against you. Mm-hmm. I just loved that thought, because I think so many times kids think that we're putting these boundaries and we're saying no because we don't love them or we don't want them to be happy, or it seems like that. But if you can put your arm around them and say, no, I'm on your team. The only reason I am on you about this, or I'm sorry, I'm not trying to nag you, but the only reason I'm trying to teach you this is because I care about the person that you become. I want you to develop these skills, and I know we can do it together. And I've just loved that thought of working together with your children, even to say, these are things that you can learn, and it's not me against you. But I love that as a sisterhood. I just feel like if we can remember that, you can overcome so many hurdles that are there with all of these things we've talked about.
So good. You and your kids. Do you have another one? We can all jump in. Another principle? I say we go one or two more. Can I see my notes?
Yeah.
I took notes on my phone, but there's another one. Actually, I just remembered it now. I had a friend share a scripture with me that I had always heard and loved, kind of with one explanation, and he flipped it on its head, and I loved it. He said, this is the scripture, where much is given, much is required. I always think about it where much goodness, where you're much blessed, right? And I love that aspect, right? There's a ton that you can learn from that scripture too. But what he said is where many trials are given, much is required. And he said, more often I connect with people because of the hard things I've been through than because of the good things I've been through. And so if you've gone through something hard, you have an opportunity to connect with other women going through the same thing. In this group of threesome, we've each experienced some hard things. Some things that we talk about publicly, some things that only the three of us know, and probably some things that nobody but us know, right? Mm-hmm. But I think what's been really amazing is I know there are certain things that other women go through that I haven't been through, that I know she's been through. And I know she has experience and wisdom where she could help that sister that I can't. So I want you guys to think proactively. Is there something difficult you've been through? And how can you use that challenge and how you've become stronger through that challenge, or what you've learned, to go help someone else who's now in your same situation. And it doesn't matter if it's one person or 100 people. The scope, in all my chats, scope is of no importance. Doesn't matter how many people. Let God take care of the scope. You do your work and let him worry about that. And so maybe it's something online. Maybe you say something online, or you start opening up with people online. Maybe it's with a friend that you know is going through this, and just offer and say, I've been, if you ever want a friend to talk to, or a shoulder to cry on, or if I can, whatever, you actually know best what those people need. Because if you've gone through, say, a miscarriage, you know best what someone who's gone through a miscarriage would need. Do they want to talk about it? Did you want to talk about it? Did they want a meal? Did they want their kids? You have the best perspective to help that person. So where much is given, many trials, things that are hard, now you get an opportunity to connect with women in a deeper way than someone who hasn't gone through that. So it's not only in the good things, cheering people on, it's in the hard things too, in a really beautiful way.
I keep having mixed thoughts, not knowing really what I need to say, but just to open my mouth. One thing, I love a quote by Marjorie Pinkley, and she says, everything you're going through now is preparing for something in your future. And I feel I know both of them have touched on it in different aspects with different people and with me, but oftentimes you don't know why God is putting things in your life at that specific time, but in the future he'll make it known why. I've had so many things where my life has not gone my picture perfect plan that I had 5 years ago. It's been very different, and I just feel like it's because God is placing things in my life now to prepare me for the future, for whatever I need to do in the future, and for whatever you need to do in the future. And I just think it's really powerful to take those lessons that you're learning now, and maybe not just to brush them aside and think, oh, that was a good thing to go through, I'm learning, I'm progressing, but to think you know what, someday I'm going to need to use that experience, or that's going to help shape me to be who I need to be. We're all on this incredible life journey that God is molding us just step by step, a little light at a time, to be the beautiful roses, the beautiful creations that he sees in us.
And the beautiful thing about what both of you have said, is I feel like then that is how God can touch us. When we reach out to others, it heals us. Amen. When we turn outward instead of inward during a trial, it's only a blessing to us. I feel like every single thing, every single hard thing that I feel like I have been through or battled or struggled, I've been able to use to help someone else, to talk with someone else about it, or to help them through it. And then that also helps my healing process. And what an amazing miracle. I feel like that God has let it work that way, because he could help all of us himself. He could say, here you go, feel better. Oh, here, you let me help you through this. But he lets us reach out, and then in turn that gives us that healing balm. I think it's
because
so
I think
beautiful.
What he truly wants is for each of us to be happy.
Yeah.
And he knows, and to grow and to progress. And that only happens as we help each other. So he could help someone, but then it would only go so far, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. I love that.
I think, too, oftentimes we forget the same thing with the whole scope thing and reaching out. It's about the one. It's about turning to your one neighbor, and everybody's one could be different. It could be your one congregational group. It could be your one group of friends. It could be your one child. But God knows the one that he needs you to bless. And I just think it's really cool how, as much as we're learning and need help, we're able to help so many other people and be a part of lives as we all grow together.
Okay, I'm going to recap what we talked about. Number 1, cheer each other on. Number 2, don't compare. Even Jesus could have. Number 3, ask the question of God. And then when you get the answer, remind yourself often. Number 4, we're all on the same team. and we're all on our kids' teams, and remind them of that too. Number 5, where much is given, including trials, much is required. You get to help someone when you go through hard things. Number 6, everything you're doing now is preparing you for something else. Great way to keep perspective of what you're going through. And number 7, God blesses you as you bless others. Is there anything else? I hate these going too long.
Yeah.
But I don't want to cut you off.
Just lastly, all you incredible women watching, don't think that, your examples bless us and those around you. And I don't know if you've seen the chain, but how they've been buoying each other up the whole time in lifting. It's been really touching to see just womanhood coming together just to be sisters, really just to create a bigger sisterhood. And it's been really neat to watch.
Yep. And I will say, I know I came down pretty hard about social media on the last one.
You didn't, though.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I don't think so.
Thank you for cheering me on.
I don't think you did.
But I do want to say that when social media is done correctly, I have been introduced to some of my dearest lifelong friends because of social media, which is crazy. And maybe that's because I feel where part of my calling is in life is how we interact online. Maybe that's why I love to champion it as well, and why I've been drawn to other women who feel similarly. But I think if we do it right, it's a place where we can get ideas. It's a place for best practices. It's a place where we can encourage each other when, if you were stuck on a homestead 100 years ago, it would have been truly lonely. Truly lonely. We're lonely now, I think, because we don't use those tools correctly.
Yes.
They were lonely because, seriously, it would take them hours to see each other. So we need to figure out a way to use it in the way that lifts and blesses. And there's so much good. Someone wrote a comment on my last post and said, well, I never think it's what you said it was. And I was like, I hope it's not. That's the goal, right? The goal is for us to say, here's another tool for true connection. Let's use it this way.
Be deliberate. I think that's the biggest key. If Instagram is not working for you right now, take a break. Don't follow those people that are not you leave feeling less about yourself.
Or go get healthy and do things that make you know your purpose.
Ask the questions. Find
if you feel like you're getting on there and it's distracting you from these things, maybe it's not other people. If it's you not being from a healthy perspective, how you want to use it.
But I'm saying, like, if you need to
ways.
remove yourself from it for a time, there's nothing wrong with that. But like you said, find out what works for you, because the connections are only real if you put yourself into them. They're never going to be real just by counting if people like your page or liking someone else's page or posting something just to get likes. Like, that's never going to be real. And so, like Lizzie's saying, figure out how it works, how it's what it could be, that cheerleading, inspiring, powerful tool in your life. Yeah.
And then I would just add, now take those practices you're learning with social media and apply them in life. The women around you, learn these things rather than like comparing yourself to everyone that you see on a walk, at school, in the gym. Take it as a way, how can I lift them? How are they lifting me? And just use that bond in real life and on the internet. I think we can use the same principles to build each other up regardless of where we are.
Yep, they're truth. Truth applies everywhere. Okay, I'll share one last one because this is something that was on my mind today. I was actually listening to a talk this morning trying to prepare, and the talk was from 1990. Okay, that was it was definitely pre-social media days, right? And the woman started off saying, we all have that woman that just seems perfect. And I was like, it's not just because we're online. Come on. This is we all put our best foot forward, which I love about women. We all want to put our best foot forward, and we all want to do our best that we can. But it's not just a social media thing. And so my last point is when you're following your purpose, you don't really care.
You're such a good example of that.
Yes. Well, I try. Thank you.
You are.
But I feel that when you're going and you're asking those questions and you're focusing on doing those things, it just doesn't matter. Like, if someone's doing this or someone's doing that, like, the need to gossip and talk about other people is just a waste of time. Because when you start tapping into who you are, you're going to be too busy. You're not going to have time for those kind of things. When you're doing what you should be doing, there's no time to look at someone else and say, oh, I wish, or oh, I'm not enough. So find it, focus, and do it.
I was just going to say that too. When you find your purpose, it liberates and invigorates you to helping other women find their purpose. Not that you have it figured out, but that you're there to be their cheerleader. So it takes away that wall of judgment and comparison, and just says, I just want to love you, and I just want you to be your best and me to be our best, and let's go forth and just
go forth.
Go forth.
You just go forth. Onward.
Merry Christmas.
Happy
holidays.
This is appropriate for this horse picture. Go forth. Okay, I'm gonna end with the challenge because I like ending with an action item to apply. I'm gonna challenge you this Christmas. This is like the easiest thing. Okay, 10 real connections in the next week. True
10
connections.
Real connections.
Real? Did I say real?
No, I was just emphasizing real.
Okay.
You didn't. I didn't
10 real connections. That could be online. I'm not saying that that's not real, but a real connection where it's a compliment, it's a cheering someone on, it's whatever that is. Do something real for a woman, and we're going to focus on women, but if you want to do it to a spouse or a husband or a man in your life, that's okay. You don't have to do makeup. I'll give that one to you too. Not just if your husband's the best husband in the world. I didn't say that. My husband's the best husband in the world from the beginning. I forgot to add that in. But focus on 10, and that could be a parent, a relation, like some other person you're with, or someone in the store. Everyone's stressed out at the store right now, getting things done. Focus on, go forth. I'm excited to hear what you have to say next.
Just wish people Merry Christmas. It makes so many people's day.
She did this one time when she was about 16.
Okay,
everyone she
keep
saw in the airport.
Merry Christmas. No, just 2 days ago there was this. Yes, and the lady was so happy. She really was.
True.
It was a random lady, and she totally, Merry Christmas, have a wonderful. And the lady turned around and got this huge smile, like, thanks, Merry Christmas to you too. It goes a long way.
It does.
That's a real connection.
I love it. Okay, 10 real connections. I'll be posting some of this stuff on my Instagram. If you have a great experience with how it went, come and leave it, and let's have a good dialogue going if you're interested. Otherwise, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Hope you have a wonderful time, and maybe have sisters with you, and if not, that you make some real connection sisters.
If you lives across the country, try to
Call
make
them up, FaceTime, make it happen.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.